99.3 KCMD, FM 106.7 KMED. And this is the Bill Meyer Show.
7:44, looking forward to interesting talk with Robert Kosch, because Robert Kosch is a pretty interesting guy. And I haven't interviewed many guests who are ex-cons and who also have come up with a plan that he thinks could actually save America's economy here in the coming months or so. Bob, great to have you on. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Bill, and thank you very much for having me on.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about your past here, because even that is colorful, because you were in the real estate financial world, right? And were working for household finance back in the day, apparently.
No, actually, I wasn't working for household finance. I was a mortgage banker and mortgage broker in New Jersey.
Oh,
and we were actually submitting loan applications to household finance back in the late 90s. Little did we know that household finance was a predatory lender, and their loans were all usurious. It's a long story, but I was instrumental in revealing their status as a predatory lender, and the government sued them. They came up with a plan to settle, but they actually went out of business and were sold off to another financial institution.
But you ended up getting popped for wire fraud during this time, right? Through all of this?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you ended up going to, what was it, Club Fed? for
Yeah. Fort Dix in New Jersey. I took a plea bargain for a 60-month sentence, which you serve 85% of, and was released. And I fortunately got back into the distressed real estate market.
I want to talk about that because on your website, which is greatergoodmediallc.com, and I will link to this, you have a book which is coming out called Reset, about coming opportunities in commercial real estate. And I wanted to touch on that. By the way, about your prison experience, I wanted to ask, did you cop a plea because you were truly guilty in your mind, or did you cop a plea because the federal government will just crush anyone who's not wealthy going into this? Could you be honest with me about that?
I have to say I want to be completely upfront and honest with your listeners. I was a little bit of a cowboy during those times. Mm-hmm. And yes, we submitted loans that were not 100% accurate, but household had a program where if you had a pulse and a deed, they would give you up to $30,000 within a day, except the rates were between 22% and 30%.
Whoa, that's expensive money, even then.
Oh,
right?
It really, really is. But, I mean, I had over 110 loans with household. At that time, you could do 10 investor loans at one shot. And what was happening is they were all distressed, board-up type properties. I would purchase them from a tax lien sale from the city for pennies on a dollar. And what I was doing, I was utilizing that money at 24%, which really turns into 2% a month. So if you keep the loan or the money for, let's say, 3 months, the effective yield on the loan is only 6%. So once again, it's all about what you can do with the numbers. And, we were rehabbing the houses, selling them, but household was dirty from the word go because you could never amortize one of their loans. So it was crushing homeowners left and right.
Okay, got it. All right. Bob, I appreciate you sharing, because I've known people that have just had to cop the plea because unless you were wealthy, the government could just come on it's kind of like General Flynn. General Flynn, his experience in which, okay, you're going to come after my kids. All right, I did it. All right. And then would you leave me alone?
Yeah, that's what they did in my instance. They actually charged a couple of my friends who had nothing to do with this whatsoever. I mean, we actually went to trial, and we were crushing the government. And then 2 days after testimony, the U.S. Assistant U.S. Attorney had a meeting with my lawyer and said, look, if you win this case, we're going to find something else to come back and get him with. And quite frankly, just don't want to do that with the government.
Boy, this reminds me of Harvey Silverglate's book. Or is it Three Felonies a Day, in which he talks about if the government wants to get you, they will.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, we'll find the crime to fit the man or the woman, as the case might be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, if you really go into the sounds and signals aspect of the wire fraud statute, yeah, you know, there's Supreme Court case law that says you can indict a ham sandwich. Well, all I was missing was mustard.
Okay, got it. Robert Kosch with me right now, and like I said, a really interesting background, which I thought was very colorful. And it's not every day I get a chance to talk with someone like yourself. You are coming out here with this plan, this book Reset. Is it out yet, or is it just still in the works, and you're kind of doing a pre-order thing on it? Because we essentially have a COVID-induced recession right now. It is a government-induced recession, in my opinion. It's not a reality-based recession, but I have a feeling but you even thought, even leading before the COVID issues, that we were kind of on that bleeding edge and we were getting to wobble again. I was wondering if you could kind of give me your financial take on that, given your numbers experience.
Sure. Unfortunately, President Trump really initiated that huge tax cut that should have been given a lot more thought, because it's reminiscent of what President Bush did after 9/11 by keeping the interest rates artificially low. The economy cycles. People buy houses every 10 years. People buy cars every 3 years. When you interrupt that cycle, it will either prolong a recession. If the economy contracts, if the economy expands, it pretty much will stay the course. But what happened prior to the pandemic was all the signs were on the wall. I mean, you have retail space, commercial space that is just empty as empty can be. And that was really what hit me in the head prior to the pandemic hitting, and the pandemic just exacerbated the entire situation.
So we're looking at a time that real estate could be looking pretty dicey in some spots, and I'm wondering how commercial real estate is going to survive, especially malls and kind of office space. Is that fair to say, or am I underselling the potential of a recovery?
You're dead on, my friend. Here's what has to happen so the commercial market, as it's imploding, does not affect the residential housing market. Because if you go, once again, I wrote on the top of the website, for those who don't learn business history, you're doomed to repeat it. And this is pretty much what's going on. In the late 1800s, during the first industrial revolution, the city of Paterson, New Jersey, suspended zoning because people had to get to the factories to work. They were moving in from farms. And what Paterson did was they allowed shopkeepers, okay, you can put 2 apartments upstairs. What they did was they created the mixed-use building. What I see as a very logical point of action for the government or municipalities is to once again allow these empty office buildings, these empty retail spaces to reconfigure themselves. And how great would it be if you had a 4-floor commercial building with maybe 30 or 40 units to allow the landlord to rent maybe the top floor as apartments, because he's not getting any income now with the companies that have basically had everybody working remotely from home. It's a win-win, because you could actually put the homeless up there. There's so much you can do.
Well, even here in Southern Oregon, we're sitting around here and trying to figure out. We had 3,000 homes destroyed in September fires. Here in Southern Oregon, in Phoenix and Talent. I mean, half the town's wiped out, and we're sitting around here trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to be allowed to do? Because we have state land use control, you have zoning, you have DEQ, environmental controls, and all the rest of this. So are you thinking that that real estate, current commercial real estate, over time will almost be going back to the way it used to be. Like I remember a corner grocery store in Logan's Ferry Heights, Pennsylvania, where I was born as a little boy, right? And there was the grocery store and then a couple of apartments above it. Do you think we're going to be going back to a little more of that, almost that European style of approach?
Well, actually, I think it's the most logical idea, because how many people now are getting used to, okay, I don't have to be in the office 5 days a week.
Right.
I can do this at home, and I'll do it through Zoom. So it just makes it's a very broad stroke.
This is a long trend term, is what you're telling me. This is a big trend which is not going to be ending anytime soon, right?
That's correct. And if we don't do anything with respect to the commercial market, it will bleed heavily into the residential housing market. In New Jersey, where I'm from, there are bidding wars right now on single-family homes. The things are selling over market value. It makes no sense, because the same thing happened in 2007, and then in 2008 through 2011, you had houses here that were valued at $400,000 that you couldn't sell for $150,000. And all those people, Bill, here's a huge point that I have to hammer home, is that the majority of people who entered into those forbearance agreements years ago, I don't know anyone who ever successfully completed one. And the ones I know, they all lost their homes to foreclosure.
Wow. I wanted to touch on something else. And by the way, is Reset out yet, or is it still in the works?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Reset is going to be out the end of January. And it's actually going to be a multi-layered interactive event, because as things progress or digress, I'm going to keep readers and people who really want to keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on apprised of all this. Because if they don't do anything, people who actually have some real money put aside can make a fortune in what's to come.
Are you thinking that we're primed for some carnage in 2021, no matter whether it's Joe Biden or well, do you think a Biden plan will actually exacerbate problems, or if Trump somehow pulls a rabbit out of a hat and stays in there, we're still primed for some issues in 2021? How do you see it?
We are absolutely primed for issues, and that's why I raised, and whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump, I have a little more confidence in Biden, just because of what the Obama administration did in 2008. But it still had to live its life. So we are in that recession now, Bill, but it's not moving at the pace that it will if we do nothing. And that leads me to my most controversial plan, which is to allow people who have cash to actually, I don't want to use the word launder or clean it, but bring it into the United States, pay a flat tax, one-time tax on it, and allow that money to be used for loans within the United States, any useful purpose.
In other words, it doesn't matter if you're a drug dealer overseas or whatever it is, and you stuck it in your Swiss account or wherever you had it. You think that one time feds then should say, bring the money home, right?
Yeah. Yep. Here's immunity. Here's what we're going to do, kids. Bring your marbles to the table. It's time to play. Because don't think for a minute that money's not getting in and getting laundered anyway. So, it's like after we're done with a war, we kicked Japan's rear end, but we're business partners today. So there's nothing really out of reach from what I'm proposing. But, the biggest thing here is that there's around $92 trillion in shell companies throughout the world. And also in the United States, the folks who are involved in cash businesses, our tax base loses close to $3 trillion a year.
So you're saying bring that money back in, give it a pay. Now, let me just play devil's advocate, okay, Bob?
Sure.
You bring in $92 trillion from overseas. Let's say even half of that came over. would that not trigger a massive inflation in consumer prices, assets, and everything else?
Well, no, because what we would do is, let's say we take a 20% flat tax on the money brought in.
Okay.
And not, I mean, to use 92 trillion, that was just, a stat that I have.
Okay.
But let's say, cut it in half. We have $46 trillion dollars where we can get a 20% flat tax. Well, our deficit is only $1 trillion, and I can't believe I said that out loud. Only $1 trillion.
Only $1 trillion, right? Well, well, maybe not this year. This year we're looking at a higher because of all the funny money, stimulus that we've been doing.
Sure. But that in itself, the flat tax would cure just about all of our woes, and it would actually, unlike the 2008 through 2011 debacle that we had, there would be money around for small businesses to reopen, restaurants. We could get back to, and I never use the word normal in this because it's all going to change. So I think it's a logical plan, because if you think at the outset, and you brought up a very good point, a drug dealer, young kid, inner city, he gets up every morning, goes to his drug spot, has his people working. The kid's got a work ethic. It's not right. It's not. But you know what? That could really work for him, his family, his community, for us as a country.
Really interesting. I'll tell you what, it's completely off the reservation for the standard way of thinking, but that's why I invited you on, Robert. I really do. All right, I'm going to link to your site there. And by the way, can you pre-order the book, or do I need to bring you back on when we're in January and we can talk about this again? I think it's very interesting.
I would love to come back on. I love your show. This is not the first time I've been on your Facebook page and what have you. So you can pre-order, but we won't be ready till the end of January.
Okay, all right. I'll bring you back because it's well, you're bubble off plum, and I'm okay with this. But on the other hand, like I said, you serve some time though. But at least you're understanding that side of the what drives that. That side of the enterprise, the free enterprise system too. You're talking about like a drug dealer, so you get that. You understand it. Thought process.
Yeah, but it's very important, Bill, because if you open up a bar restaurant, if you don't know how the bartender's going to be stealing from the cash register or watering down drinks, you have no business being in that business. In that business, and I look at it from my end. I've been through all the dirt. I've been through all the back end deals, foreclosure sales being rigged. I could go on and on.
Yeah. Bob, I'll have you back. Robert Kosch. And the website where you can find out more about Robert, greatergoodmediallc.com. And there's also a link to the book. And I'll put all this up on my show blog on KMED.com. Great meeting you. And we'll talk next year. Okay. We'll definitely dig into this as you get closer to publication. All right. You be well.
All right. Thanks very much, Bill.
Thank you, Bob. It's a couple minutes after 8 o'clock. Like I said, stimulating conversation with Robert Kosch. This is KMED Medford, KCMD Grants Pass, also heard on translator K294AS Ashland.